Welcome to another episode of FilAm Creative Voices. I'm Arlyn Dela Pena.
And I'm WalterTalens.
And we have the beautiful, talented Rain Valdez, producer, actress, and writer.
Yeah,
My goodness, you have so many projects going on.
Yeah.
Where I don't even know where to start.
I don't know where to start either.
You have so much going on.
I don't know where to start. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good to have some new projects sort of lined up. I have some that I'm currently working on, and then I have some things sort of in development. And then my latest project, Hexed, which was a short film that premiered last year at Outfest, just got nominated for Best Director, Best Comedy, and Best Actress at
my goodness.
Madrid Asia International Film Festival.
Congratulations.
We didn't win.
That's okay. That's okay.
Which we found out yesterday. But still, it was my first nomination in any of those categories. So it was really exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hex, is it? I'm guessing is it about witchcraft?
Yeah, it has a little
Charmed?
bit. Yes, it has a little bit of magic to it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can you tell, what's the synopsis?
Yeah, it's about this woman gets hexed by a homeless person, and she has 24 hours to find somebody else to kiss, or she expires. She basically dies in 24 hours. So the idea of it was, my inspiration for it was, you know those old 80s movies that had like magic to them, like If the Shoe Fits,
yes.
or, Made to Order. Like, I wanted to sort of bring back that genre into today's culture of filmmaking, and then just put queer people at the center of it. And so we had a lot of fun doing it.
Awesome. We should have you check out this one movie with the Santo Niño.
I
know about it.
Coconut chick.
I totally know about it.
You may see a cameo.
No, I was
of a crazy driver.
I was at one of the very first table reads for it last year before it was before it was produced,
Where was I that day?
before anything ever happened with that script. It was a wonderful script, and I'm so glad it finally got made. And so congratulations, Meriden. It's amazing.
Right,
so yeah, I know exactly all about that film.
But it's just so funny because that is like a very 80s thing, right?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite genre. It's like kind of like romantic comedies, where I feel like romantic comedies kind of disappeared for like a decade.
Yes.
And it's starting to make a comeback, which excites me as a filmmaker because my short film Ryan's is a romantic comedy, and growing up, that's kind of how I always saw myself. If I ever actually got to act and work in this industry, was rom-coms, and so yeah, it's an exciting time.
And how long have you been a filmmaker?
Well, I've been in this industry for over 10 years. When I first moved out here, I got myself in an acting class, and I just started, really studying the craft, and went out for auditions, waited tables, and, had little survival jobs here and there. But I got a little disenchanted with the industry because I kept getting these roles that were very just like, I don't know, tokenizing or objectifying.
Right.
And it was very disenchanting because I was a no name. Nobody knew who I was. I wasn't going out for roles that I really wanted to play. So I kind of quit acting for a while and got a job in post-production.
Okay.
And I started learning how to finish a film. I started editing. I started as an assistant editor and then kind of worked my way up as an editor, and then eventually became a digital intermediate producer.
Wow.
That was my official title. And basically what that job entails is producing the finishing aspect of feature films. So I got to work on Pitch Perfect and Laggies and several films that were really fun.
I'm sure that's a huge advantage too, knowing all everything in post, because I don't think people have a good appreciation of how long a film takes to make and how long it can stay in post. And I mean, it's crazy. It's so wild.
And the great thing about working in post was I had learned so much about how to finish a film, you know, codecs and cameras and, you know, all of this, you know, software. And it made me want to start writing and directing. So it kind of, because I knew post, because I knew how to finish, and I knew what my end product was going to look like, it made me a better decision maker as a writer and director and producer, because I already know what I could do with the finishing work. So that's kind of the start of my filmmaking career. One of my best friends who co-wrote and co-directed Ryan's with me, Natalie Heltzel, we met in post-production. And we were both, you know, filmmakers. And so we just kind of like, well, we need to do our own thing. Because we had our post-production facility as a resource. So we would shoot our own stuff, we would write, and then we'd shoot it, and then we would bring it to our own post house and just
awesome.
and then finish it. And then we have a short film that looks cinematic because we have this access, which is, you know, very rare in this town.
No
kidding. To have that access.
So just geek talk real quick. So you learned Avid like as an assistant editor?
It was Final Cut Pro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did work on Avid for a minute, but we mainly, at that time, it was Final Cut Pro, and then we moved into Premiere. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a geek talk, just because I was just having a discussion about that with
there are a
fellow
lot of people
editor.
who prefer Avid versus Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, and we're
Premiere.
just debating about like studios, like, you know, what if they've converted or which shops, blah blah blah. So it's kind of it's a tangent conversation.
No, I mean, I think it's a good thing, because I hear about that too. You know, I mean, I'm not an editor. Like, oh God, I try like to like do simple things, and like it takes me forever. So I just don't have, I guess, like the natural talent to do it. And I do hear people talk about it a lot, especially like people who have worked in post houses or have been an editor for a long time. You know, it seemed like, and I don't know, you can correct me, guys, if you know, but Avid seemed to be like everybody used Avid, and then there was, you know, much more affordable, and more user friendly maybe programs that came out, and then people started switching over to,
and that's kind of when Final Cut Pro came in, because it became this user friendly,
and then Premiere
software that was portable.
Well, Premiere basically took the best features of Avid and Final Cut and incorporated into theirs. And I think the nice thing about Avid is the fact that it's file sharing. Like, that's why a lot of studios and TV shows still use it.
Oh,
because
I see.
assistant editors and editors can they can assemble it, and then the editors can go in and work on it, blah blah blah. So it really depends on what you're using it for, or like what your end product is. So like for commercials, trailers, and short films and stuff like that, like, and independent films, like a lot of people use Final Cut Premiere just because they don't have to do that file sharing. Because with Avid, you need to like have like a hard drive, like a network, a hard drive. Like the studios has this like servers. So, sorry guys, little.
Like, anyway.
So you guys probably fast forward now to let's go back to Rain.
So Rain, where did you grow up? Did you grow up here in the States?
Well, I was born in the Philippines. I grew up in Guam.
Oh, cool.
Which part of the Philippines?
I was born in Manila, but my family is in Laguna now.
What? I have family in Laguna.
Yeah?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's where they're at
cool.
now.
Cool.
Dude, small world.
I haven't been there in so long. I'm
Oh, so you
trying to
haven't.
make a trip back soon, hopefully
So
soon.
different now.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you were in Guam?
We migrated when I was 4.
Oh, okay.
So born in the Philippines, my mom remarried a Guamanian, and then so we migrated there to be with him and his family. And then my mother and my stepfather had 3 other kids. So I have 2 half-sisters and 1 half-brother. So there's 5 of us total.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I was pretty much raised in Guam. I went to high school there and moved out here when I was 19.
Oh, cool.
What's
Yeah.
Guam like?
I know.
It's kind of like it's kind of like Hawaii, like a small tropical island. Our main industry is tourism. It's very quiet, great place to like raise a family.
Was it a cultural shock then when you came here?
Not really, because it's an American island. So we were exposed to American culture. So I've always, and I watched a lot of American TV and American movies, and so it was a slight culture,
Because city life,
shock,
is
but it
different.
wasn't. I mean, and that it's where I wanted to be, so I was more excited to be here than shocked.
And you came to California anyway, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
Asian Americans or Filipino Americans and Chamorros, right?
Are there? Just kidding. I mean, when I moved out here,
Well, if you went to Daly City,
I was sort of like in the heart of Beverly Hills and Hollywood.
Oh,
yeah, girl.
Yeah.
So there,
Yeah, girl.
I did not
It's
have
a
a
little-
community.
It's a little bit different.
Kind of had to find my way around.
I'm glad we brought you here to historic Filipino town.
Yeah.
But no, one funny thing is like whenever like my Chamorro friends, I go up to them and be like, "Hey, so are you Filipino?" And they're like, "No, Chamorro." I was like, "No, it's a Filipino." just to mess with them. They get so mad.
I'm surprised you're not 6
surprised
feet
you-
under yet.
I'm surprised you have tomorrow friends. I have no tomorrow friends.
Oh, yeah.
Not
But-
here in LA.
What?
Yeah, there's some
some,
here. There's a
yeah.
community
Yeah.
even Bay Area.
From
But-
tomorrow being like from Guam.
Yeah, from Guam. But I
wow.
feel like it's because people mistake them for Filipinos, so
Yeah.
you don't think about it, or you just assume
Yeah.
sometimes. Because I'm like, oh, start talking to them in Tagalog. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's like being in, because I went to high school in Texas, and it's like primarily Hispanic, and everybody just thought I was Hispanic.
Yeah.
And then they would try to
Yeah.
talk to me in Spanish, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah,
I had
some
no
people
idea.
think I'm Hispanic and will speak Spanish to me, which is, I think it's a compliment. Like, yeah, sure. I'll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's that? I always
no
find
habla
it
español.
Yeah.
But thank you.
like, un poco español.
Yeah.
But like people think I'm Nepalese for some
Really?
reason. Yeah.
How interesting.
That's so
Really?
specific.
I know.
I love how that's so like, are you
Is this in
Nepalese?
Italy? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Sorry. Side joke. It's for another episode. Call back. No. Because I went to Nepal, and like the locals there would come up to me, or tourists would come up to me and thinking I was like a local, because like I grew my hair. I was like, my hair was growing out, and I had a little,
Really?
yeah. And then and our tour guide would just play a joke on people, because like when you're going up like the Everest or the Himalayan mountains, like the guys going up usually are trying to they exchange, because there's no internet really, right? So they talk to the guides and it's like, hey, what's the weather like up there, blah blah blah. So the locals going up asked my guide who was coming down, like, hey, who's what's the weather up there? He's like, no, I'm just an assistant. That guy's the tour guide.
Oh my
He points at
goodness.
me and he's like, they're like, okay, so they come, like they cross this room and they come talk to me, and they're like, and I'm there with my friends, but they're all they're white, like the Europeans and American and Brits, and he's like, they start talking to me, he's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? I'm sorry, what? He's like, oh, I'm like, and I looked at my tour guide and he was like laughing his ass off. I'm like, sorry guys, I'm not Nepalese. And
That's
they're-
what you get.
Yeah, and then they looked at me like I was lying, and I was like, I mean, I think it's a compliment when people like mistake you for something, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's Hispanic or
Yeah. It's
Guamanian.
fun because it's like people are always constantly guessing.
Have you ever tried playing along with it?
No, especially when it's here in LA. Because it's hard to play off of it because they don't know the language.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, no, not Spanish. Not gonna happen.
When you first moved here so where'd you move when you got to America?
Here in LA.
Like Beverly Hills, you're saying?
Yeah, I stayed with my uncle who lived like Beverly Hills adjacent, like very close to the Beverly Center.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be a movie. Like Guamanian moves to Beverly
Yeah.
Hills.
Yeah.
It's like a very contrast. That's a contrast, would you say?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean,
but I loved it because my other option was to stay with a friend of mine who was living in Orange County, and
Oh,
I
that's too
originally
far.
I thought that I would stay with her, but then when I got here and I was with my uncle for a few weeks, she had come to pick me up, and then we went to Orange County and we kind of hung out there for a minute, and I was just like, nope, I kind of want to go back to Beverly Hills because it's such a different.
it's a different
It's
vibe.
a different vibe.
Completely.
And I
Yeah.
wanted to be in the city vibe. I wanted to be in, near Hollywood, near, the excitement of where it
I don't
happens.
even know how people like travel, from outskirts LA proper, because the traffic is horrendous. And
Yeah.
because I live on the west side, and just driving from the west side to here took like more than an hour. And so I can't even imagine for like
True
Orange
story,
County.
guys.
A lot of people do it.
Too much.
And
Yeah.
what people who are like outside of LA probably don't understand that like that 1 hour is only a distance of like 10 miles, I think, or maybe
Less than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think mine was
10
10
miles,
miles.
and it
Yeah.
takes an hour.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
But then you realize if you've been like, well, Philippines, man, that's even worse.
That's like that's different. Yeah.
That's you've driven.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of put things in perspective, right? Like being from a third world country, that's there's no lanes, so it's like so
Anything is a lane, anything.
Yeah, exactly.
There's lanes. It's just suggested.
Are there?
No one follows.
So it kind of just put things in perspective in terms of, which is why like I always try and live in a place of gratitude because I could easily be in the Philippines where there's no AC or there's,
Could be hat.
yeah. So
I think that's the thing that strikes me the most about you is how humble you are.
Oh,
like
thank
you
you.
have like seriously like your resume alone, even without the acting, like the things that you've done, working behind the scenes and post, like it's amazing.
Thank you.
It's amazing. And for those of you, I had the opportunity to meet you during a panel at I believe it was Citrus College.
yes.
Right? It was, forgive me, Citrus College, I think. So, and it was really amazing to hear your story and how you really went from the post world into acting, and even how you were able to get lines, on Transparent, and
yeah.
can you share that story with everybody? It's so inspirational.
Yeah, well, Transparent was the first job where I kind of was living out and proud as an Asian American trans woman. But prior to that, working in post-production, no one knew about my trans identity. I never talked about it, I never disclosed. I didn't have to. Fortunately, I didn't have to. But yeah, I kind of wanted something, I was searching for just something more deeper and something more honest and truthful and more me. And when I had the opportunity to work at Transparent, it was such a great way to get into a community of like-minded folks who were filmmakers, but were also, people from the community. And, I started working behind the scenes. I was the director's assistant and then worked my way up to a coordinating producer. And the creators of the show, Jill Soloway, knew that I was also an actor and a filmmaker and treated me that way when they would introduce me to people. They would say, this is Rain Valdez, she's a filmmaker. And that really meant a lot to me. I felt seen. And on season 4, I got to be on screen. I had a little co-starring role, which took place in the 1980s because it was a flashback scene. It was we were diving into Alexandra Billings' character Davina backstory, and so we went back to the 1980s where there was a pageant being happening, and I was Miss Van Nuys, and was first runner-up, so I didn't win. But it was such a fun day, and it was such a fun just to go back into that time period. And the show has done a lot. Transparent has done a lot for me on a personal level, but also career-wise, it's done a lot for me because it was between season 2 and season 3 when I wrote and shot Ryan's, and Ryan's was that that sort of catapult that kind of changed the game in terms of my career. I thought it would help me get writing jobs or directing jobs, but it actually helped me get acting jobs, which is kind of awesome because that was my first love anyway. It helped me land the role on Lopez, which was a reoccurring role.
And speaking of Lopez, your character on Lopez is like
Coco.
so opposite,
Coco the
like
diva.
So because during the panel we were able to see, kind of this montage of the things that Rain has done, and it's so funny because, I was watching, I was like, she's so mean. Like,
she's very fierce. She's sort of, and that's a funny thing. When I was in acting school, my teacher told me, "You're going to play the angry pretty girl with a heart, like that. That's what you're going to be playing." And I was like, what? I was so shy. I was so quiet. I had no idea what he was talking about. But but he would constantly assign me those roles that were, angry and mean and very mean girls. But I would always play it with a vulnerability and with a heart. And he would always make sure that when you do a character breakdown, when you're working on a scene and you're studying the character, make sure to find out why that character is that way, so that it's coming from a real place. And so when I got the audition for Coco, it was just kind of a no-brainer for me because I was like, oh, I know this girl. I know this character because this is what I've been studying to play for a really long time. So yeah, it was a very fun experience.
Going back to earlier, what you were saying, like when you were early in acting, you were saying you said that you were getting kind of like stereotypical roles and whatnot. Like, can you explain to some folks, like, and to myself, like, I'm just curious, like, what exactly, like, what kind of stereotypical roles were you getting, and then what is it that you wanted or saw yourself doing, or as an actor? Yeah,
well, the roles. Well, first of all, no one knew who I was, so the roles that I would go in for were co-starring roles or guest star roles, or little under 5, meaning like one-liners or two-liners. And the roles that would come in were, sexy roles or nerdy Asian roles, and a nerdy Asian with an accent. And I don't really have an Asian accent. I don't, because I grew up in Guam. I kind of got rid of it.
Yeah.
Purposely. And and part of it was because I wanted to fit into society, and I in my head, in order to do that, I have to sound like everybody else. So I kind of just acclimated to my surroundings. But when I got here and I was auditioning and I was acting, it was frustrating because whenever I would go into like, you go out for like just a character who's beautiful or pretty. I'm pretty, but like, oh, she's not hot enough, or she's not sexy enough, or she's not Asian enough, or those were the comments that I would get feedback wise from my manager or my agent at the time, if we even got any feedback. Or sometimes the script was just bad. It was just like, this is bad. Like, Asian people don't talk like this, or I don't talk like this, or, it's very objectifying. And just, it's kind of, I was unconscious about it at the time. It was something that I was uncomfortable with, but I was unconscious to why I was so uncomfortable with it, which led to just quitting entirely.
Yeah.
There's such a tokenizing, Hollywood has a reputation of tokenizing Asian people, the Black community, and just anyone who's not white, really. And so that was really hard. And when I got the Lopez role, which was one of my first big TV roles, I got to say to George Lopez, I'm not here to be your token. And it was a line that resonated so much with me because prior to that, all of the little roles that I would go out for were very much just to tokenize.
That's awesome. And I mean, did you get to work with them on that line, or that was someone from the writing team of
No, it was already
Lopez?
written. There was one line that I changed there were several lines that I had to change. I had to go to the writer and say, hey, I can't say this, and this is why. And they were all great about that. But that line had already been written, which is one of the reasons why I fell in love with the character, because she was so strong and ballsy and just like, said whatever she needed. She was saying things that I wish I could have said.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I appreciate about that experience.
Kudos to the Lopez writing staff.
Yeah,
right?
TV Land. TV Land is where it's at.
Yeah. It's funny though, just tangent, like I got a audition or a role for that. Like I auditioned for this role. They gave me the sides and the description too was just like, blah, blah, I forgot the character's name, whatever, speaks with an Asian accent. And I'm like, what? So I emailed him and I'm like, is there a specific Asian, what's this Asian accent? It's like, no, just an Asian accent. I'm
Like any?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was like,
that's
"What?"
weird.
Yeah, didn't go to that audition.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I'm
definitely
not
like
gonna
a
waste
lot
my
of, I mean, especially like, as a woman, like like the whole sexy part. I mean, I've done, photo shoots where they, they describe the character as like this like super like strong, powerful female. And then they want me to put on like, specific attire, and then they're like, oh, can we just make it a little bit more sexy? And I'm like, dude, I will be showing my pepperonis to everybody.
Yeah.
Like this goes any lower, and that's not okay. And or like, sorry, I'm a mother. That's what happens. They don't go back.
Oh, jeez.
Tips for everybody. but anyhow, yeah, or like, I've done, other things where they'll change the wardrobe and they'll want me to wear like the smallest bikini that they have. And I ask for it, like, do you have anything more covering? And they're like, you don't need it. I'm like, no, I do. Like,
Yeah.
this is,
Wow.
like, I'm not comfortable.
So like
wearing
they're
this.
like, you come on set, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna try to give you an XL shirt, and then they're like, they take one shot. It's like, yeah, it's not gonna work. Let's change the wardrobe, and then they give you like pasties.
I was literally like in like a fully covered uniform, and then I was asked to go change, and then like it was like this pool scene, and they were like, oh, what size do you wear? And I'm seeing like they're just changing like these other people into like, kind of like really laid back, like tank top, shorts, and hoodies or whatever, right? And I was like, oh, sweet, perfect. I would prefer, to just be like more covered up. And they're like, what size? And I'm like, oh, small. And then they hand me like this like triangle bikini, and I'm like, damn it. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? And so, yeah, and it's kind of
bait and switch?
It's such a no. They refuse, and then all of a sudden, when I asked that, I became the difficult person, and I was just like, fine,
Yeah.
okay. I don't
Doesn't
care.
that suck?
Yeah,
That like
and no
when
one
you
preps you for that. No one preps
vocalize
you.
your preference, all of a sudden you're the difficult person. It's
Right.
just like, what? Like, how is that
That's
even?
fine. I'll be difficult.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be that.
That being said, like I'm just wondering, as a filmmaker, as an actor, and with your experience, like what kind of advice would you give actors who are placed in that position that I was in, like, like getting an audition that's with generic accent, like they didn't really put much thought in that character, or the bait and switch kind of situation, like man or woman, like yeah, what's your advice?
Yeah. Well, as an actor, I think, if you're not working regularly on a TV show or on a film, your job is pretty much to go on auditions. Like that's your job, and that's what you should be making a priority if you want to succeed. And for me, it's about picking your battles. It's about like, is this a script? Is this the audition that I want to? Do I want to fight this? Do I want to, just complain about it or whatever? Or should I just go in there and do my job and, win the room? Sometimes it's about just winning the casting director. Yeah. And so, for me, I have turned down auditions. I have turned down roles, but I'm at a point where like I've been auditioning for so long that I already know if this is a role that is worth my time and their time. But then there's some where I kind of want to turn it down, but I'm like, no, I should just go in there because it's a casting director that I would want to meet, or that I would want to at least see my work.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, you know, when I auditioned for Coco on Lopez, there was a line that I wouldn't say, I couldn't say, but because it was just at an audition stage, I wanted to do my best as an actor, and I went in there and I did the audition and I said that line. And when I booked the role, I asked my manager to let them know, to tell them that I can't say that line because of these particular reasons. And so when you, I think the priority should be to go to the audition and try and book the gig. And if there's an issue with the character, then, you know, once you have the job, you can probably work with a writer, and they could probably, they're
And advocate for yourself.
yeah, and advocate for yourself, which I think is really important. But you have to do it in stages. You can't do it. You can't do it when you're not even. You can't do it when you're not even in the room.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, trying to change things, you know, that you don't even have. It's like
I'm
it's
just
kind
curious
of-
though, how does that answer change when it goes to like those people starting out and like it's copy credit and meal kind of
goodness.
deal? Like I get what you're saying with the paid or TV shows, but how do you
Yeah.
feel if it's like copy credit meal kind of?
Well, the copy credit meal, that's
Or-
an
or
opportunity.
university, yeah.
That's an opportunity for young up and coming talent to kind of get some material. So, I mean, I did copy credit meals for a really long time just to get some footage of myself, just to get some experience and meet a community of young filmmakers. So, yeah, I think if you're just moving to LA or you're just starting out as an actor, I think that's the first thing you should be doing is
You have to start somewhere.
yeah, you have to start somewhere. You have to pay your dues.
What kind of, I guess, reception have you been getting with your films? Talk about like, you know, whether it's Hexed or
Ryan's.
Ryan. Like, what's the reception like with, you know, the people who just watch it, whether it's just with your family or the friends or just the public?
Well, the public reception has been very positive and amazing. And what Ryan's and Hex did for, you know, for me and for my friends and for the community was kind of brought a positive depiction to trans characters, because transgender characters in the past historically have been played by cisgender actors and have been vilified, shamed, and, you know, ostracized out from the community, and time and time over again. And you know, I kind of wanted to reverse that narrative with my films. I kind of wanted to show Hollywood and the world that, you know, we do deserve to be loved, and that we do have love in our lives, and that we are funny, and that we can tell stories, and that we can play characters that have nothing to do with our trans identity. Because a lot of times, if we're not writing our stories, if cisgender people are writing our stories, there's a tendency to focus on the transition, on you know, that specific thing, which but we're so much more than that. And so so I think when my films screen at festivals, or, you know, when people see it on the platforms that it's on, it's so different from some of the stories that we're seeing, because sometimes queer and trans stories tend to focus on the tragedy, where mine just, you know, didn't. It wasn't really about any of the characters transitioning. It was just kind
It's
of
like a
about
love story.
Yeah, their lives, you know, falling. It's about love. It's about relationships. It's about friendships, and also it's you know, it helped me with my new project. The public pretty much knows, or at least my community knows, that as a filmmaker, I know how to deliver. So when I crowdfunded Raise Your Tongue, because people knew of Ryan's and Hexed, they didn't have a problem contributing to the
That's awesome.
to the fundraising campaign because
you delivered already.
Yeah, Rain delivers, and she delivers good stuff. So it's like
Say it. You can say it.
It's like,
You can say it.
Say it. Good what?
yeah. So but that was a learning process for me. I had to kind of figure that along the way. I didn't know that a lot of the fundraising and the contribution would actually come from my fan base or
the community.
my community, which was kind of amazing.
Tell the folks what Razor Tongue is then.
Razor Tongue is my new 7-episode web series. I'm really excited about it. It'll be coming out soon, sometime in the fall, I hope.
Okay.
We're still trying to figure out
release date yet.
dates.
Okay.
Yeah, no set release dates, but we do have. There's just some things I can't talk about, but it's exciting because we're very close to the finishing work of it and starting to get it out of the public. But it's about a trans woman who, in her own life, starts to expose and call out the misogynistic behaviors that happen around her in her life with certain men. Like the first episode, she's on a blind date and he doesn't let her have a word in edgewise, and she starts, at the end of it, she starts calling him out on what he did wrong on the date. And the second episode, she's at a job interview, and he is a typical sort of like, a man in control who doesn't ask the appropriate questions that you should be asking at a job interview. And so she calls him out on that. And so throughout the process of doing this, she kind of falls in love, and then she's offered a job at a live podcast, and she finds herself in a crossfire of consequences when she's antagonized into calling out the person she just fell in love with out publicly.
Oh,
so
my
it's
goodness.
sort of like a dark comedy with dramatic elements.
That's like so Razor Tongue.
Yes.
So is it like how long are each episodes?
Each episode is
Or
about
expected?
4 or 5 minutes. I
Oh,
think
okay.
the last episode is 6 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a lot of stuff going on in that 6 minutes, because that sounds like to set that up.
Yeah. It's
Set up
basically
the-
like, overall, it's sort of like a half hour. Like if we put it all together, it's sort of like a half hour pilot presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
We
good.
kind of wrote it where it could be like a half hour show,
Mm-hmm.
but then we broke it up into little episodes to tell the story of and the journey of this character.
How did you find your community, and how important
Yeah.
is community to you?
Oh gosh, it's very important to me. Well, some of my best friends I met in acting class years ago. So we've known each other for years. And acting class was kind of like my college. I was in it for 6 years. It was my life. It was so. And then that carried over to work. Sometimes you create communities at work, and then. But my community now, which is, I'm excited about it. It's an artist collective called Now Ever Artist,
Okay.
which is short for Now More Than Ever, and we get together twice a month, like bi-monthly, and we do live script readings of original content.
Oh, cool.
So, a script that's written by someone in the collective, and the collective is very queer, female, trans. Base where inclusive, not exclusive. So cis people could join the collective as well. But that's kind of how we were able to start sort of producing some of what we've produced, and Razor Tongue being the first one. As a collective, we decided that this was the first one we were going to tackle on as our first production. So we crowdfunded the heck out of it, and and it was such a testament to the collective and how just driven and how eager we all are to tell our stories and and really do the work to change the narrative of queer and trans people So community is very, very important to me, and I wouldn't be where I am today without my community. Sisterhood is also very important to me. Trace Lissette is an actress, and but she's also my sister and one of my best friends, and we sometimes will go out for the same roles, and we'll talk about it. For like, did you get that audition? Like, I was like, no, I didn't. It's like, yes, I got. And, we would go out for the same roles, but we support each other and we love each other. And there's and obviously, we're both actors, so there's the competitive aspect. But when one of us wins, we all win, and so it's important to have.
I just want to come back to like something about you said earlier about being an actor and just the way they treated you being trans and all that. Like, but being Asian and then trans, like, how much more difficult was that for you, if you don't mind talking about that?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons why I kept my trans identity to myself for a very long time, because as an Asian American, woman, a Filipina American woman, things were already hard in this industry, and I was always the only one in the room. It was very challenging, and I was always in service. Every job I was in, even when I was even though when I was a digital intermediate producer, I had a very fancy title and a nice desk, but I was also in service to, the owners of the company. And even though I was doing most of the work, my paycheck didn't reflect, their paycheck. So it was already hard. And I thought that coming out as trans and adding another label, Asian American trans women, that it would just get harder for me in this career. But thankfully and fortunately, it didn't go that way. It kind of, the movement kind of took steam, and I was fortunately in a place where I could be a part of that and start changing the language and the depictions by being a part of the writing and the storytelling and the acting. And it's a lot of it too is just and for me it's just one of those things where it's just part of the job where I have to constantly talk about it. I have to constantly talk about my experience as an Asian American trans woman in every space that I'm in. And it, it's sort of like a responsibility. And so I don't get tired of it. There are times when I'm just like, sometimes I feel like I'm repeating myself because I am. I am repeating myself, but there's an importance to repeating myself because we're still in a place where, trans women of color are being killed. 27 trans women were murdered last year, and the 13th trans women of color was just murdered this week. And so that's a lot already. And and it's because of, I believe that Hollywood, plays a huge part on how society and cultures are shaped. And if you look at the history of filmmaking in the last 150 years, all the trans characters that we've had on TV and in film were played by cisgender actors and played it in a way that was that created danger for our community because the characters were always vilified and were always reminding the audience that it was played by a man. So therefore, society thought that that's what we are, or that's
that's who you really are.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic
it's,
that you are bringing so much light and so much talk about the community, because if you're not, then who is? you know, and there needs to be a cultural shift. There needs to be a huge
There needs to be a
shift.
cultural shift, and we have to do it in numbers. You know, I can't do it alone, and Laverne Cox can't do it alone, and we kind of have to really, you know, tighten up our ship and sail together, because it's not malicious, but it's the unconsciousness. It's the unconsciousness of the people in power that's killing us. So, you know, trans people and queer people, when we talk and when we, you know, vocalize and when we advocate, it comes across as, you know, like that we're impatient or that we're frustrated of this industry, and we don't want to come across that way, because, you know, we obviously want to be working in this industry, but at the same time, we have those feelings because the unconsciousness is what's killing the community. It's what's killing our sisters. And, you know, there's an urgency. There's an urgency to want to create as much content to reverse all of those that have been created in the last 150 years. To combat all of that, we need to start creating new content that's authentic to who we really are, and that humanizes us in ways that, you know, cisgender, heteronormative folks have been humanized in TV and film, you know, throughout history.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's anyone who can lead that, you know, I have faith that it's gonna be you and
Totally.
our projects.
Seriously,
And I really wish you the best of luck, and hopefully,
you'll have all of us, all of FilAm Creative, right behind you, supporting you and all your projects. We're looking forward.
hopefully,
to everything up and
best of
coming.
luck in your premiere.
Yeah,
of your
thank you for having me
series.
here. I'll definitely keep you guys posted on all the projects.
Yeah, please. And if you can let the audience know, like, how can they follow you, and what's your social media?
Yeah, my social media is very simple. It's at Rain Valdez on Instagram and on Twitter. I don't Twitter as much, but I am on Instagram and Facebook. But so if you want to follow me, it's Instagram would be the way to do it.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming and, you know, talking with us, and we really appreciate you for coming. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to
good.
your projects.
Yay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank you, Rain Valdez. I'm WalterTalens,
And I'm Arlyn Dela Pena.
and thank you for watching and listening to FilAm Creative's Voices.
Peace.
Bye. Thank you.
Today's episode brought to you by the good folks at Filipino Worker Center. From the heart of historic Filipino town, PWC focuses on providing programs that help meet the immediate needs of workers and their families, while at the same time building their leadership to take collective action for long-lasting change.